Preserve your memories, they're all that's left. Well, not always all that's left. In most towns, folks seem to take pretty good care of their city hall. Well, most towns. In Baton Rouge, the story of renovations at the Old State Capitol reads like a fairy tale.
Once upon a time, there was a castle on a hill, and the people would gather there to make decisions about all manner of things. But one day they built a shiny new castle and forgot about the old one for many years, until a wise man came along and said, "Look, the old castle is still beautiful." And the people agreed. They said, "Let's patch up the old castle and paint it like it was new." And that's just what they did, exactly like it was new. This is our castle, the Old State Capitol, as photographed just before its restoration. It was in pretty bad shape, but still haunting its halls with a ghost of our collective history.
We've been able to move quickly, and we've been able to accomplish a great deal in a relatively short period of time. So I've been pleasantly surprised by the efficiency of the people involved.
Roger Busbus has been leading the restoration for more than 2 years.
Well, we've had a few minor surprises. For example, when we were restoring the basement, we discovered 2 cisterns that we had not known existed prior to this restoration. Of course, they were examined by the state archaeologist. We found some pottery shards, a few other items. Nothing really significant from a historical perspective, but still it was interesting. And of course, it's been interesting just to see the building return to its 1882 grandeur.
Busbus says he loves this grand dam, and grand it certainly is. Rising from the first high bluff on the Mississippi River, this hill was a meeting place for the Houma and Bayou Gula Indians. It's a weird-looking building. For its time and ours, it's an anachronism. The legislature of 1850 christened it. Fistfights were common over political issues. Here they caught a passion for politics from which we've never recovered.
This is the second most important building in Louisiana from a historical perspective, second only to the Cabildo, and sometimes I'm not willing to yield that point. This building is the heart and soul of Louisiana, and that's not hyperbole, that's the literal truth.
In January 1861, Louisiana seceded from the Union here. The next year, Confederate authorities abandoned Baton Rouge. The Yankees moved in, and those sons of Boston burned it, leaving only the walls of brick 3 feet thick. In 1882, after nearly 20 years of neglect, architect William Ferret completed the refurbishment of the castle.
Now, we, of course, took samples of the paint from the walls, from the woodwork, from the floors in some cases, to make sure that we had the correct color, the right kind of paint, the right kind of consistency. We also examined journals, correspondence, and other items that describe the building after the Ferret restoration.
So you've restored all of these little...
Everything possible. This, of course, is a marble mantel over a coal-burning fireplace, and this was very carefully restored and reconstructed.
It's very nice. Was it pretty cracked?
It was. In fact, parts of it were literally in pieces.
It's very nice. Very nice.
This was the scene of bitter battles between reformers and old liners. Year after year, they fought with Southern gentility and an occasional caning.
Legislators from the hill country of North Louisiana, from the bayous of South Louisiana, traveled here by boat, by train, on horseback, by carriage, and so on. When you're in this building, you can almost see across the chasm of time. And this is the chamber of the House of Representatives, one of the most historic rooms in Louisiana. It was in this chamber, the original chamber that the Secession Convention met. It was in this chamber after the 1881 restoration that there were bitter debates over the first Louisiana lottery, and here in 1929 the impeachment proceedings against Huey Long began.
And these windows really do give it, well, give some rooms a feeling that it's a cathedral in a way.
Exactly.
Are these the original, by the way?
Original to the Ferret restoration, 1881, 1882. Now, many of the panes have been replaced,
Yeah.
but the window itself and the nature of the
It's the
panes
same design.
the same as in 1881, 1882. And of course, Ferret tried to reproduce what the original architect James Dakin had done in 1849. And of course, that window looks out actually over the Mississippi River. And the Gothic Revival architecture of the building enhances the cathedral essence of this, sort of a cathedral of political history.
Huey Long was nearly impeached here. It gave him such a sour taste for this symbol of the old that he simply built a new state house.
This building was traditional. It represented what he considered an older Louisiana, possibly a more aristocratic Louisiana. He wanted something that would be a little more magnificent, something that would emphasize what he intended his administration to be.
That's right. In fact, Huey put up those WPA-style murals in the new Capitol to celebrate the common man, whereas maybe this was more of an edifice.
Right, a castle on the Mississippi, again associated with that more aristocratic tradition, but a tradition that was typical of the South and typical of Louisiana, and really represented, again, in many cases, a sense of true public service, dedicated public service. But Huey Long preferred the skyscraper with the murals, as you said, that bring to mind Thomas Hart Benton and others.
And how do you know, really, that that was a peachy kind of salmon color?
Very careful scraping. We made sure that we got to the bottom layer of paint and then reproduced that bottom layer exactly. 1882 lives right here.
Even with all this exacting restoration, despite the thorough history displays, there are still stories to tell about the old castle.
Here at one of the upper towers, we're about 4 stories now above ground level. In one of the upper towers, the pages, those young men and later young ladies as well, who would assist in delivering memos on the floor of the House of Representatives, etc. Well, those folks used to use this as something of a romp room, and it seems that they wanted to immortalize themselves along with the legislators they served. Names like J.B. Sullivan from 1911, J. Rieger from what looks like Donaldsonville, Louisiana, put his name to these walls on April 26th of 1913. It looks as though Ray Silvertongue was an Indian from New Mexico who also lived in Edgard, Louisiana. Walker Ronaldson loves Marguerite Rose. I am from New Orleans. I am a page in the House, and my name is Joseph Smith. I am here July 3rd, 1904, but God knows best where he will be July 3rd, 1906. Billy Porteous Jr. was a page in 1912, 1914, 1916, and 1918. He called himself the kid that knows some stuff. I'll bet he did know some stuff. Horace Long from Floyd, Louisiana, was a page in 1904. He wrote, "Think of me, for you will never see me again."
When you're in this building, you can almost see across the chasm of time.
Now, someone will say, you know, times are lean for Louisiana right now, and we've gone and spent money fixing up that drafty old monstrosity. Well, to the people who appreciate things like 1850 castles, the money it costs to restore a Gothic cathedral isn't all that important.
This building has seen Louisiana history in its grandeur and in its tragedy.
It's just something you have to see to feel. Lost Louisiana will continue.